The Cleveland Browns terminated the contract of veteran defensive end Ogbo Okoronkwo on Thursday. And while there's several ways to look at this from Ogbo's standpoint and from the team's standpoint, this move may not tell everybody the entire story that they're looking for. We're going to break it down. Browns 3D on the OBO begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Floyd. We appreciate everybody who comes to the OBR every single day for your favorite Cleveland Browns content, whether it's in written form from our fantastic team of writers, or, of course, the OBR streaming network that begins every night beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern with Browns 3D. Thursday, you will have All Eyes on Cleveland, Brad Ward, and Casey Kinnaman will be on at 7, so stick around for that. Do want to start just real quick. Missed the last couple of days. Extreme heat on Tuesday. Had the house running on a generator. The noise would have been way too much for you all. And then yesterday, I did have the pleasure of attending my first and oldest child's high school graduation. Again, it was hot as all can get out. But there's some things in life, especially when you're a parent. There's days you look forward to. There's days you have bookmarked. Certainly a child's high school graduation was one of those. So to my daughter, Avery, we could not be more proud of you. We love you. We are amazed by your accomplishments to this point, and we will continue to sit front row and be the biggest fans of you as you continue down this path of life. Now, with the way things have been going for the Cleveland Browns, this is something that we have been talking about a while in relation to Ogbo Okoronkwo. Now, I can say that the Cleveland Browns had been listening, or should I say, had been trying to have conversations about Ogbo Okoronkwo going back to the draft. If you do remember, around that time, there were, right after the draft, I believe, there were kind of like some cryptic tweets, and everybody kind of felt that maybe that was the sign from Ogbo that, his time here was ending. He, again, responded quickly after that and basically saying he was talking about something else, not his future with the Cleveland Browns. But the Browns certainly were listening on Ogbo Okoronkwo. And there's a lot going on here, and I think everybody probably has the same feeling on this one way or the other. I think if you think the Cleveland Browns can truly contend in 2025, you probably don't understand why they would move on from a player like Okoronkwo. If you don't think they have the ability of contending in 2025, then it makes all the sense in the world not to keep Ogbo around. Ogbo was 30 years old. Ogbo is in the final year of the 3-year deal. Well, he was in the final year of the 3-year deal he had signed with the Cleveland Browns. His 2023 season, he looked pretty good for Cleveland in a reserve pass rusher role. Last year, it was only 1.5 sacks. His time, 2 seasons in Cleveland, 7.5 sacks. Ogbo has been in the NFL for 7 seasons, 17 total sacks. So it's not like the Browns cut loose this top vaunted pass rusher. He probably was not staying here. I doubt the Cleveland Browns would have had any interest in bringing him back for 2026. So for Ogbo, it's why not now hopefully find a spot, hopefully a home. My guess would be maybe Atlanta could certainly be a place. Go reconnect with Todd Bowles down there. But for Okoronkwo, it wasn't going to be anything much longer than Cleveland. And wasn't going to stay at the end of his deal, 30 years old. A lot of people are asking about Isaiah McGuire. Isaiah McGuire was already starting over him last year. Isaiah McGuire is 24 years old, already has a reputation as a fantastic run-stopping defender in the NFL. You hope and you think that the pass rush skills will improve. It's not so much that it was, Ogbo or Isaiah McGuire. Isaiah McGuire was still going to be the starting base end for the Cleveland Browns this season. That was not going to change. No, there was no bigger role for Okoronkwo here with the Browns. But it's more about kind of the other guys. Alex Wright also does not have a contract at the end of the season. Alex Wright is only 25 years old. Joe Tryon-Shanka is only here on a 1-year deal. So technically, he does not have a contract at the end of the 2025 season, and he is only 26 years old. Cam Thomas. Now, I don't know if everybody remembers the Browns made this move late in the regular season last year, but Cam Thomas will soon turn 25. He was a 2022 third round selection of the Arizona Cardinals. A guy you want to get a look at. I'm not saying all these guys are going to make the roster, but I'm saying all of these guys deserve the reps. And, for Okoronkwo, for what would have been a limited role, I don't fault the Cleveland Browns for making this move. Did they need the $3.3 million and the $6 million overall that they're going to recoup? No, they didn't need it. But in the same respect, we go through this a lot and we have these conversations a lot with the Browns when it comes to them moving on from older players. There's not a great way to have a conversation with an NFL veteran who you have a relationship with and basically tell him, we're diminishing your role. You may not dress on game day. These are conversations that would have come up this fall if the Browns decided to keep Ogbo Okoronkwo around. It makes for a difficult relationship. It certainly makes things a little bit difficult within the locker room because certain players who would be close with an Okoronkwo are wondering why he wouldn't be dressing. Whereas maybe there's some other guys who would understand, that it's a youth movement and the younger, there's just so much that goes into it. But you do not have a perfect ending to all of these scenarios. Sometimes just moving on or separating makes it easier because you realize things are about to change. And once they do start to change, then the relationship is really affected. And it certainly could be an issue in season. So these are why you get these moves. The Browns, from what I know, yes, they were trying to move him, and the market was not robust, to say the least. And he's a tad bit undersized. He has proven that he can be a good situational pass rusher in this league. But again, 17 sacks in 7 NFL seasons. That's not blowing anything out of the water. Those numbers are not staggering. The production is not great. 7.5 sacks in his time here in Cleveland. I think it was, I'm sorry, my mistake earlier, it was 4, and then I think 3.5. I admire 2023 when he came back at the end of the season and played injured so he could play in the playoff game. Respect, a lot of respect for that. But the fact is that you have Isaiah McGuire, you have Alex Wright, you have Joe Tryon-Shanka, you have Cam Thomas, one of the most under talked about guys in all of rookie camp, and of course in OTAs and mini camp, was Aiden Huntington. 6 foot, 285-ish, a odd ball sized player to be playing defensive line. Kind of moves like a D end. He's kind of built like an undersized defensive tackle. But these guys, all these names that we're mentioning, these are the guys the Browns want to see get reps. And who knows? Say the Browns get close to the deadline and the team looks pretty good and they think they need a pass rusher, then maybe you go out into the market and go try to bring in somebody like Ogbo Okoronkwo. But the Browns are not going to take all of these reps from the summer. They're not going to take, game reps away from these guys. Obviously, they feel pretty good about the group they have. Now, I agree. Taking anyone out of that defensive end room, for me, doesn't make a ton of sense. And if everybody remembers, I was team Abdul Carter. So taking them out of the equation, Okoronkwo, certainly makes me feel like a room that was probably not as strong as it has been for the Browns in the past may not have been the correct move. But then again, I mean, Ogbo Okoronkwo, and for what comes down to 3.5 sacks per season, well, I think McGuire should be in for a jump. Tryon, I think, will beat 3.5 sacks this year. Alex Wright, if he plays a full season with his ability to play on the inside and the outside, I think is going to be higher than 3.5 sacks this year. Heck, I think Cam Thomas, if given an ample amount as a reserve pass rusher, could break 3.5 sacks. All of these guys are a minimum 4 years younger than Ogbo. So I don't see it. Like I'm surprised that they would do something to maybe what looks like they are weakening the defensive end room. But you could have asked me in March, you could have asked me in April, May, and of course now in June, if I thought the Browns and Ogbo Okoronkwo were going to get through the 2025 season together. My first answer would be to you, absolutely not. We're not going to give a 30-year-old guy who does not have a future in Cleveland, doesn't have a contract in Cleveland, reps over young and hopefully developing players. Isaiah McGuire is the starting defensive end opposite Myles Garrett for 2025. And obviously, he was a high focus of Monday's episode of a Browns player, year 3, who certainly looks like he might be ready to break out. So, McGuire, with being as steadfast and as sound as he is in run defense, the Browns are going to give Isaiah every opportunity to improve as a pass rusher. More, I've kind of nosed around after we did that episode. I don't think Isaiah McGuire weighs the 268 pounds that he did at the combine. That's what he weighed in at 6'4", 268. He just did a short video piece the other day with Andrew Siciliano. And, shirt was covering his belly, but it looked svelte. I would believe to say that McGuire is probably under 260 right now. And what I would also believe in regards to Isaiah McGuire is that he is probably doing everything he can to improve quickness, improve athleticism, and in the hope that it'll equate to better pass rush numbers, better pass rush win rate, and better overall pass rush production. This is probably the plan right now for Isaiah McGuire. Isaiah McGuire right now is probably a fringe starting defensive end. He has this opportunity, but can he keep it? It's great that you can be a guy that is successful in run defense as a defensive end. But none of us are naive. It's pass rushers. Pass rushers are what teams want. Now, if McGuire can get his pass rush numbers to an acceptable number, and if you want a number, let's go with 7 sacks. If Isaiah McGuire can get himself to, say, 7 sacks per season, or just even this season, all of a sudden now, the Browns may change the way they look at Isaiah McGuire. And it may be something where, hey, the 7 sacks combined with the top 5 run grade, which is what he had in 2024, all of a sudden, now maybe you're talking about Isaiah McGuire as a starter again in 2026, which he will be contracted for, and then possibility and the potential of a contract extension and Isaiah McGuire staying longer term in Cleveland with the Cleveland Browns. Alex Wright has always been interesting, and there were plenty of us who were huge Alex Wright guys during his draft process. It has not gone exactly swimmingly for Alex Wright. Missed time. I don't think it's always been. It's been advantageous for the Cleveland Browns that Alex Wright is a player that can play inside, and Alex Wright is also a player that can play outside. But as much as some folks felt he kind of carried an incomplete grade at UAB because you never truly got to see him in one position for an extended period of time and made your determination on what his true position was and then try to say, okay, well, we can also use him in other ways. UAB had him doing everything. And I think that's kind of been the case with Cleveland, where he's just never gotten a long enough run at one spot for anyone to have a great feeling on Wright's game one way or the other. So now that may not change, unfortunately, for Alex Wright here in 2025. It could be a good amount of playing inside. It could be a good amount of playing outside. We'll see how the Browns approach this. The Browns are going to have better personnel pass rushing from the interior than they have had in years past. I think in an ideal situation, the Cleveland Browns, as far as the first two interior pass rushers that would be on the field for them in a nickel situation, a dime situation, would be Malik Collins and Mike Hall Jr., health permitting. Hall was all that and then some from his days in Streetsboro through his days through Columbus. Malik Collins, this is pretty much what he's got for this point in his NFL career, is that he is a guy that can kind of be a menace, can create some pressures, can certainly create some sacks from an interior pass rushing set. Certainly, you have to factor Mason Graham into that. And Mason Graham certainly is going to be a guy who hopefully grows in this capacity for the Cleveland Browns. They would like to see a good amount of improvement from Mason Graham in pass rush scenarios. You don't normally spend the number 5 overall selection on a run stopping only defensive tackle. But to their credit, obviously, I think they think there's something more with Mason Graham as far as his pass rushing ability. And it's up to Mason Graham, and it's certainly the coaching staff to work with him to achieve, but him overall improving as a pass rusher. Now, this brings up obviously questions of what goes on next. You certainly can have Shelby Harris do a little pass rushing. I'm not necessarily sure that's what you're going for. And I'm going to be honest, Shelby Harris, it would not stun me if Shelby Harris was another name that we found out maybe the Browns decided wasn't the best fit for the 2025 team. They're trying to get younger. I don't think they're trying to, you know, collect their nickel and dimes monetarily, but I think they are trying to spend a little wisely. Ogbo Okoronkwo as maybe your fourth or fifth defensive end just wasn't wise money. And that could be the same scenario for Shelby Harris. If he is viewed as D tackle number 4, or God forbid, D tackle number 5, what are you paying the freight for? Let the younger guys play, not counting Malik Collins, and then try to truly see what you have. But certainly you have a guy like Alex Wright who can kick in the inside. At times in the past, the Browns have put Myles Garrett on the inside as a pass rusher. You could go with a NASCAR set where you're playing 3 defensive ends. You can have Joe Tryon-Shoyinka just stand up over either the left tackle or the right tackle and just try to win with his ability. Shoyinka has had 6 sacks the last 2 seasons. 2024 was a little low with 2 sacks, but the Browns gave him $4 million. That's a commitment for the 2025 season. They'll save, again, $3.3 million by moving on from Ogbo Okoronkwo. So you kind of see the reasoning and how that kind of unfolded, of course. So you can move guys on the inside, certainly can keep some guys on the outside. Question also comes down to how many defensive linemen you are keeping. Usually teams keep 10 total with the thought process that, maybe you're only dressing 9 on game day. 5 edges, 4 defensive tackles. It's kind of been the way the Browns have done things the last couple of years. And again, for Ogbo Okoronkwo, and I'm not saying to be against it, but, for where his position is in that defensive end room, or where it was in that defensive end room, now again, you're talking specials. This is what the 4th and 5th guys in positional rooms usually do. They have to play some special teams. I'm not sure a 30-year-old Ogbo Okoronkwo wants to. I'm sure he would. I'm not sure the Browns want a 30-year-old Ogbo Okoronkwo playing special teams for them. Now, so 5-5. So you figure Miles, you figure McGuire, you figure Troy Anshinka is making this team on a free agent contract where they're giving him $4 million deal. Then you have Alex Wright, and then for me, it could be a Cam Thomas. I'm not saying that Aiden Huntington, if he does not continue the path he has been on to this point so far with the Browns, doesn't become a guy that Jim Schwartz just kind of falls in love with. High motor guy, was productive in college. It's just looking at him at that 6 foot and 280 and change and just trying to figure out just exactly what the heck he is. But you put on the tape, and we all saw it recently here, in rookie mini camp. We saw it in OTAs, and we certainly saw it in, mandatory mini camp. Guys just out there doing everything he can. Great motor, always around the football. When the pads go on, we'll find out. But certainly a guy that I think could become an apple of the eye for defense coordinator Jim Schwartz. So, yes, Ogbo Okoronkwo has been moved on. The Browns saved $3.3 million. Okoronkwo's got about a little less than a month to hopefully latch on to a team to begin training camp with, or then does he just kind of be that guy laid in the weeds, waiting for somebody to get injured or somebody for a team that, needs a situational pass rusher at some point in time? But I think Ogbanaya, and I'll say it again, I think there's a connection there, possibly with the Atlanta Falcons, even though the Falcons did just spend 2 first-round picks. Not 1, 2 first-round picks on pass rushers in this past April's draft. Now, if you have already hit that we don't think Kevin Stefanski is a good football coach, a good enough football coach on your bingo card for the 2025 season, well, folks, we've hit it, and we have certainly hit it. It's funny that these conversations in regards to Coach Kevin Stefanski are always in the terms or the jest of Coach Stefanski can't develop a quarterback. I think people like to use phrases without truly understanding whether or not they apply to the narrative that they are trying to suggest. When Coach Kevin Stefanski got here, he inherited Baker Mayfield. We all know how 2020 worked out. And obviously, we all know how 21 worked out, which certainly led to the events for 2022. Who have they drafted? Who have they brought in at the position? Where was the high profile draft pick quarterback that was given to Coach Kevin Stefanski that he could not develop? Dorian Thompson-Robinson? I agree, but you're not firing a head coach, nor are you going to label a head coach unable to develop a quarterback when the quarterback you drafted him was in the 5th round. But let's also keep in mind they still got DTR to win a game at home over the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's won games with Jameis Winston. He's won games with PJ Walker. Won games with Joe Flacco. Yes, none of that is about development necessarily, but it certainly shows that Coach Stefanski and his system can work with a wide variety of quarterbacks. Now, none of this is totally ideal when it comes to the hate that Coach Kevin Stefanski gets. And it actually becomes pretty frustrating and kind of just makes me a little bit furious. Yes, he is a 2-time coach of the year. Yes, in his time here, he's taken the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs twice. Yes, there have been some dreadful, dreadful times for the Cleveland Browns under the leadership of Kevin Stefanski. And certainly last year was probably by far the worst. But if we want to see whether or not Coach Stefanski can develop a quarterback, well, again, you've given him two good quarterbacks to work with. Now, I'm not necessarily going to say that these guys are, top flight, top shelf. I mean, one was drafted in the third round, as we know, in Gabriel, and the other was drafted in the fifth round. That's Shedeur Sanders, as we all know. So again, I wouldn't say it's going to make or break Kevin Stefanski if neither of these guys hit. But I think the talent level certainly is there for both Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, that we can maybe start to use them, as the basis to the can coach Kevin Stefanski develop a quarterback. Both resumes in college speak for themselves. Both extremely talented, extremely accurate. Both carry leadership, legit care about the game, and give it the proper time and effort that it deserves. There are those who just, I think have been done with Coach Kevin Stefanski for a while now. And I've been on record many times defending Coach, and most of it is the Browns finally have some sort of continuity. And everybody complains about all the changes that are always being made with this franchise, and about how all the changes they made never basically led to much success. So it always makes me laugh when people then have had some success with Coach Kevin Stefanski, but then still lean into the adage of essentially starting all over again. Again, I think it's a foolish approach. I don't necessarily understand, and I certainly don't believe it's going to give you the return that you all are hoping for. Coach, if he can do a decent enough job with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, may finally, in fact, get that prize top quarterback. Because I think Gabriel and Sanders show well enough, but not well enough to be in contention for the future number one gig here with the Cleveland Browns. They will then believe, if they do find the bingo number one right fitting right guy, then they will go out and take one of the highest, if not the highest ranked quarterbacks next April in that class. So kind of closing up here, Ogbo Okoronkwo has had his contract terminated. Ogbo, will go to free agency, looking for a home for the 2027 season. The Browns just had too many young guys in that room. And that's not what held Ogbo back here. It was just that there wasn't going to be enough reps. And most likely whatever reps Ogbo Okoronkwo thought he was going to get here in 2025, that number probably from the Cleveland standpoint was lower. Again, this issue they have that some of you guys don't all understand is that when you start to see a relationship going south, you don't wait for it to completely fall apart. Maybe you get yourself out early. And then I think that is what the Browns felt. The $3.3 million is nice. It's not making or breaking anything. It's not changing anything for the Cleveland Browns. They would love to have the extra money. They don't necessarily need the extra money. But after originally signing a 3-year contract with the Cleveland Browns, Ogbo Okoronkwo has had the contract terminated, netting the Browns $3.3 million. Ogbo will be set to hit free agency and find a new home for the 2025 season. After Myles Garrett, the room is for 2025 a battle between Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, Cameron Thomas, and the undrafted free agent, Aiden Huntington. I am Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate you all for coming out to the OBR each and every day. Whether it is looking for the best Cleveland Browns written content from our fabulous group of writers, or you're joining us every night, 6 p.m. Eastern, for the OBR streaming network. Browns 3D kicks it off at 6 o'clock. It's Thursday. All eyes on Cleveland. Casey Kinnaman, Brad Ward will be here at 7. No spam included. So again, we appreciate you all. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on Twitch. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. And we'll talk to you all tomorrow.